Packing up her things, Kate made funny faces for Ethan every now and then to cheer up the baby. The woman was feeling very emotional because they had to leave the house they'd been calling their home for quite some time. "Mrs. Roberts, maybe you could just stay here at least until spring. It would give me time to find a new place for us," Kate asked the owner of the house, hopefully. "No, I can't do that. My relatives from Missouri will be arriving any day now, and they need a place to stay," the woman answered in a tone that wasn't open to objections. Tears welled up in Kate's eyes. The woman had nowhere to go with her 1.5-year-old child, especially during the harsh Maine winter. Unfortunately, Kate couldn't persuade the owner of the house to meet her halfway, and thus she ended up on the street with her little child. Holding the bag in one hand and pushing Ethan's stroller with the other, Kate left the house where she just got betrayed yet again. Tears were flowing down the woman's face. In the cold, piercing wind, they turned into ice and covered Kate's cheeks with a thin crust. Kate didn't know where to go. She only had $20 in her pocket, and it was still 3 days until she got her benefits. The poor woman was hoping to find a cheap motel where they could stay for the next couple of days. Kate took her simple smartphone out of her pocket to search through her contact list for someone who could lend her at least a couple hundred of dollars. Going through her contacts, Kate got turned down time and time again. People on the street looked curiously at the tear-stained stranger with the stroller, but they kept walking by indifferently. "What am I supposed to do now? We can't spend the night outside. We'll freeze to death," Kate thought with a sob. At that moment, the phone fell out of her frozen hands and landed straight onto the road. Leaving the stroller on the sidewalk, Kate hurried to pick it up before it got destroyed. Not thinking straight, the woman went onto the road. As she was bending over to pick up her phone, she heard the screeching of car brakes somewhere very close. Kate froze in fright, and then someone's strong hand literally pulled her out from under the wheels of the car, rushing at her at full speed. Everything happened so fast that the woman didn't even have time to realize what was happening. Having turned around, Kate saw a nice-looking man in his 30s with large, slightly sad gray eyes standing in front of her. God, Michael had the same eyes, flashed through the woman's head. Meanwhile, the stranger smiled at her and said, "Are you sick of living, ma'am? Throwing yourself under the wheels of a car and leaving a small child behind?" "I wasn't trying to. I just wanted to pick up my phone. It fell out of my hands and ended up on the road." "Well, it all makes sense now. And here I was worried that you decided to end your own life. Be that as it may, you can forget about your phone now," the stranger said and nodded in the direction of the remains of her gadget that just got crushed under the wheels of the car. "Oh God, could this day get any worse? I just got kicked out of my house and now I don't even have a phone." Kate was devastated. The stranger responded by hurrying to calm down the young mother and inviting her for a cup of coffee in a cafe around the corner. "Come on, let's get you warmed up. You need to take a breath and then we'll figure out what to do next." The man tried to cheer her up. Kate looked at Ethan lying in the stroller, and having thought about it for a second, she accepted the stranger's invitation. On their way to the cafe, the young people started talking and immediately grew to like each other. As it turned out, the name of Kate's unexpected savior was Andrew. From his clothes and his demeanor, Kate concluded that he came from a wealthy and influential family. Andrew turned out to be a very pleasant and courteous young man. From the very first minutes of their conversation, Kate realized that he was very interesting to talk to. Having ordered coffee and some pastries, the man didn't forget about her little son and got him a juice box. Upon learning that the woman sitting in front of him was a single mother, Andrew felt very sympathetic towards her. Moreover, it was obvious that there was something else he wanted to say. Kate looked questioningly at Andrew and smiled shyly. "I know that you're in a difficult situation, Kate. You have nowhere to live, and you're tight on money. Well, I can help you, but I'm going to ask you for one favor in return," Andrew said in a friendly manner. At that moment, Kate blushed to the very roots of her hair and seemed to have lost her ability to speak. She couldn't believe that a stranger who had just met her would be willing to help her and her child. I'd really appreciate your help, of course. But what kind of favor are you talking about? Don't worry, it's nothing shameful or illegal. I'll just need you to pretend to be my fiance. It's for my parents, you know. Andrew answered faster than he should have. Your fiance? But what about Ethan? Kate exclaimed in surprise. Oh, that won't be a problem. The fact is that a couple of months ago, I was actually dating a woman with a child. Unfortunately, we broke up, but that's exactly who I want you to pretend to be. In return, I will help you and Ethan with money and a place to live. So, what do you say? Will you do it? Andrew asked, hopefully. Having heard Andrew out, Kate thought about it for a bit. On the one hand, Andrew's proposal seemed rather attractive, but on the other hand, she was afraid of the unknown that awaited her in the future. And what do I actually have to lose? Michael left me over 2 years ago, so I don't owe him anything. And I need to take care of my son first and only then think of myself, Kate thought. Therefore, after thinking it over, Kate decided to accept Andrew's offer. Andrew's face lit up immediately. He smiled sweetly and thanked Kate for her decision to help him out. On their way to his parents' house, he bought a brand new smartphone for Kate. It was the latest model on the market, which was indefinitely better than the phone she had. He also bought a gift for Ethan, a teddy bear holding a jar of honey. Andrew's parents lived in a large 2-story house located outside the city. The trio took a taxi to get there. Seeing the huge mansion in front of her, Kate froze. But Andrew had already pushed Ethan's stroller up to the door, so the woman had no choice but to follow them. Kate timidly stepped inside the beautiful house and found herself in the realm of wealth and comfort. The woman grew up in an orphanage, and thus, for a brief moment there, she thought that she was in a fairy tale. To Kate's surprise, Andrew's parents turned out to be very nice people. Unlike most millionaires, they weren't the least bit condescending and didn't show any contempt for other people. Henry and Amanda Mitchell were self-made people, and thus were used to treating other people with respect. Oh, what a beautiful baby. Can I offer him some cottage cheese casserole? Asked the lady of the house, not even attempting to hide the joy in her voice. Absolutely. He started eating solid foods a while ago, Kate answered. As it turned out, Andrew's parents had prepared a celebratory dinner for their guests. Moreover, Kate noticed that the table was set up for more people than were currently in the living room. They must have invited some other guests too, the woman thought. At that moment, the door opened and a young man came into the room. Kate, meet Michael, my older brother, Andrew said, pulling up a chair for her. When Kate looked at Michael, she was so shocked that she nearly passed out. Dear God, this can't be happening, flashed through the poor woman's head. The fact was that Andrew's brother was Kate's ex-boyfriend, who broke up with her 8 months before Ethan's birth. They broke up over 2 years ago and had never seen each other ever since. Moreover, neither one of them understood what the true reason for their fight was. And now they stood in front of each other and pretended that they hadn't met before. Michael obviously recognized Kate and now watched with genuine interest as Andrew tried to convince everyone that she was his fiancée. The situation was so strange that Kate would have gladly disappeared off the face of the earth just so she didn't have to see Michael's condemnation. Is it really just a coincidence? How was I supposed to know that Andrew and Michael are brothers? Kate thought, feeling guilty. Meanwhile, Andrew noticed that his guest was feeling very uncomfortable. However, he didn't know that Kate and his brother knew each other. So he thought that Kate was simply feeling uncomfortable being in a new place with people she didn't know. Fortunately, Amanda Mitchell invited everyone to the table, thus interrupting the awkward scene in the living room. Dinner was just great. Andrew joked a lot and told interesting stories, while Michael, on the contrary, seemed sad and didn't take his eyes off Kate. Meanwhile, the young mother tried to avoid looking at Michael and devoted all of her attention to Ethan, who seemed very comfortable in such a big house. When the dinner was finally over, Michael volunteered to show the guests to her room. Kate gave Andrew a wary look, but he didn't get the hint. Meanwhile, Michael picked up Ethan and led Kate to the second floor. The young people didn't utter a single word as they went upstairs, and only when the door to the guest bedroom closed did Michael dare to break the silence. "Is this Andrew's baby?" Michael asked bluntly. Kate looked at him with eyes full of tears and shook her head. "Then who is the father? Just tell me." The man wasn't about to give up. "You are, Michael. You broke up with me when I was already pregnant," Kate exclaimed. At this moment, Michael turned pale and his lips started trembling. "I broke up with you? But it was you who sent me an email saying that you had another man. Isn't that what happened?" "You're wrong, Michael. I never sent you anything like that, but I did get the same kind of email from you," Kate answered in a trembling voice. Only then did the young people realize that they became victims to someone's cruel plan. Someone who really didn't like their relationship decided to break them up in such a mean way. At the moment, everything fell into place. Michael figured it all out, and a spark of understanding lit up his eyes. It must have been Dorothy Wilson. She worked as my assistant and tried to get me into bed with her. She was the only one who knew all my passwords, Michael exclaimed. The pieces of the agonizing puzzles finally came together in Kate's mind, and the picture was completely different from the one she had in her head during the last 2 years. But the young mother didn't have time to respond, as she heard Andrew speak up behind her. Apparently, he heard the entire conversation. "I immediately realized that you two knew each other and were only pretending that you didn't," said the man, smiling. Michael looked guiltily at his brother, but he just waved him off. "I'm glad that I accidentally helped you two sort out your situation. Also, I think that our parents deserve to know that they have a 1.5-year-old grandson," Andrew added, as they started going down the stairs leading to the first floor. At that moment, Michael and Kate exchanged timid glances and then openly professed their love for each other. They had been waiting for this for so long that they could no longer restrain their emotions and feelings. Having parted through the fault of an envious woman, Michael and Kate had never gotten to see each other again. But thanks to the unexpected twist of fate, they were able to figure out what had happened 2 years ago. A couple of minutes later, they went downstairs and shared their secret with Amanda and Henry Mitchell. Tears welled up in the eyes of Michael and Andrew's parents. The fact was that they had long dreamed of having grandchildren, but their sons were in no hurry to start their families. And now, by the will of fate, Amanda and Henry didn't just get an amazing daughter-in-law, but also a little grandson who looked so much like their eldest son. To make things even more festive, Michael and Kate announced that they decided to get married. Looking at the happy faces of the newly reconciled couple, the parents were sure that from then on, their life would be full of love and tenderness, which they had dreamed of for so long.